Okay, I'm going to show you guys how to get started designing your logos and actually making them digital. So at this point, you should have your rough draft sketches, and we should have already gone through and critiqued them and settled on your strongest 3 to 6. Some of you may have a few more, but we should have gone through your drawings and picked out the strongest ones. Now we need to make them digital. So how you do that is you simply open up a new file in Adobe Illustrator, go to New, File, New, go to Letter. Most logos, I recommend that you have the landscape orientation. So that means that your paper is 11 inches wide and 8.5 inches high, and then you click Create. So you will end up with a white artboard like this. Yours may look a tiny bit different, your tools and stuff, just because I have the 2018 version. Your background may be white. It doesn't matter as long as you have your artboard. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to have your drawings out and you're going to look at them and you're going to use that as a reference to start designing your logo. Depending on what it is, you will most likely simply start with your text, get your text and your letters down. So I have a logo that I've been working on that I'm just going to use as an example. It gets a little messy and a little crazy, so I'm going to bring this one over to show you guys. So the original concept that the owner of the company wanted was something like this. So I designed it out for them, and we can clearly see that it does not really work very well. So I designed this one out, and how I actually designed this was to get the image of the wrench. I simply went onto Google and I found a picture of a wrench and I brought it into Illustrator and I traced it. So I want to show you a quick example of how you can do that. Whatever you need, you go to Google, you find a picture. If you don't like a full-on picture like this, like a realistic type picture, you could even do a silhouette. So simply you go in, you find your image. If the image is simple enough, like this one, you can right-click and copy the image, go into Illustrator, Control V to paste it. Ooh, that did not work very well. Some images are weird, it depends on how they're saved. So let's bring this back up. Some of them you can actually save the image, and a PNG file is awesome. If you have any images pop up as PNGs, these are basically already Illustrator files and you can work with them. It's great. So I'm going to save this PNG file to my desktop, and then I'm going to open it in Illustrator. And if you'll notice, PNG files, they don't have a white box in the background. They're simply the image. And what's really nice about this is they're really easy to use the image trace. So you can go up to Object, go down to Image Trace, go over to Make and Expand, and then using your Direct Selection tool, the white arrow, you can delete the background. Now I have a wrench with points, and I can adjust this however I want. So that's how you can easily bring in an image. If you don't have a PNG file that you can easily trace, let's say you have a real image, you can copy this image, Control V to paste it in. This one's really big, so I'm going to hold down Shift. That way it stays to size. Now I can zoom in, and using the pen tool, I can then trace and create my own outline for this. Okay, so you would have to utilize your pen skills. Oops. So remember, when you have a point that you need to break, hold down Alt, and then you can break it. So you can, I'm just going to end it here because I'm not going to spend the time tracing the whole one. So you can either trace a realistic image and get a silhouette type image, or if you find a decent or good enough image, you can do the image trace. Sometimes the image trace does not work out very well and you have to go in there and do little tweaks and edits to get it the way you want. So I'm going to delete these examples. So I did, basically this would be like my drawing. This was the first concept that was come up between me and the client. You're coming up with your own concepts because basically you're your own client. So after making it digital, we realized like this is awful and it does not work. And sometimes that's what happens, is when you make them digital is when you can really see if it's going to work or not. So how I got my fonts is if you go to your type tool, obviously you can select different fonts, and we have a decent amount of fonts installed on the computers. Gill Sans is a really good one. Franklin Gothic is a really good one. These are some basic fonts. However, if there is a very specific font that you want, what you can do is you can go to dafont.com, dafont.com. They have thousands of fonts here. So what you're going to do is you're going to type in, or well, first you're going to pick a style of font, depending on what kind you want. So there's fancy ones. I recommend staying away from fancy. Stay away from foreign looking ones. You really don't want techno too much. Pixel and bitmap, it really depends on your company. There's Gothic, Basic, Script, Dingbats. You stay with Dingbats are all symbols, so we don't want those. Script is very hard to read, so you want to kind of stay away from Script. Most of your designs are, your logos are going to be sans serif or serif. Sans serif means without serifs. Sans means without. And serifs, I'll show you what serifs are. And this is something we're going to discuss fonts pretty soon. We're not too worried about our fonts right now. We're going to get fonts later on. So serifs are fonts with these little feet on them, all these little feet. So those are serifs. So serifs have the font, the feet. Sans serifs do not. Sans serifs are pretty blocky. So this is a really awesome website. And what you can do, and I don't recommend wasting a lot of time, but if there is a font that you really like that's on here, you can use it. However, we can't download them in our computers because of the way it's set up. But if you find a font that's free, and you have to kind of look, so you can go here and you can look free, 100% free, and click on that and click submit. And now it's only showing 100% free fonts, so you can use these. Now normally you just download and you're fine. However, we can't download them for the school computers. So one really cool thing I like about Dafont is if you type in the name of your organization and click submit, it actually spells it out in that font. So let's say I really like this font here. It actually shows me all the letters and everything, which is really cool. Normally we would just download this and we're good. However, because we can't, there is a trick. You use the snipping tool. So bring up your snipping tool, click new, and highlight just the font with your company's name in it. Go up to edit, go down to copy, go back to Illustrator, do Control V to paste it. So now I have it pasted. Now you can go in and trace it with the pen tool. I highly recommend you trace it with the pen tool instead of doing the the image trace for make and expand, because see how all of these edges got messed up? So see how everything's curved. So before, See how it's nice sharp edges? And then when we actually image trace it, image trace messes it all up and it's all round and ugly. So do not use image trace on your fonts. It's not going to work. You're going to have to go in with the pen tool and trace it. It will take you a few minutes to do this, depending on how long the name of your company is, but you're going to be better off for it. Now, do not go through and trace 10 and 15 different fonts. You should be just focusing on one font, and then later on we will decide to change our fonts. I even recommend just using a font that is available already. Like Helvetica is really nice to work in if we have Helvetica. Okay, I don't have Helvetica. We might have it at school. I'm just going to use Gill Sans because I know I have that one. So I'm going to create my font. I'm going to right click and I'm going to create the outlines. Now it's an object. I hold down Shift and I can stretch it. Okay, if you right click again, you can ungroup, and that's how you can move individual letters around or keep it the same. So I did my first concept sketch here. Didn't work out. So then we started coming up and with other ideas, like these ones here. So we changed the font up. We just made it simpler. We got rid of this like tacky thing that was going on here. We spelled out manufacturing because MFG, not everybody knows what it stands for. Then there was this measuring tool and some gears, and it just wasn't feeling it. So we tried the gears in different ways, and still kind of sticking with the same font because I'm really concerned about just getting the layout down and the feel of it. I can always adjust the font later on. That's not a big deal. So if you notice, my fonts are all lined up. If I take my ruler, everything is lined up. That's what we want. Everything lined up. Okay. So always make sure your stuff is all lined up. It just helps. Even if that means you have to stretch out the words, and I will show you how to do that in a minute. There's a couple ways we can do that. Then there is also the gears. I made all those. So as you can see, I did this version with the gears kind of in this order, and then I made this version with the gears in this order. Then we decided to, I decided to get rid of the line on the bottom just because I wanted to see what it looked like. I put the gears on the right side, got rid of the little measuring thing, put the line back under it with the gears on the right side so you can see it's the same logo, just a little variation. Tried it with the measuring tool on the right side and changed the gears around. So a little bit more of a variation. Then we decided, if you actually know anything about gears and how they work, if you have a third gear in here like this, it's actually not going to spin, and this is kind of a hot mess. So I decided to simplify it down to 2 gears, which actually made it look less cluttered. It was more simple, and in reality, these gears would actually turn. So then we started playing around with a tagline going underneath it. So here I had it. I liked the gears on the right. I liked the way this was lined up with the line underneath it. So I started playing around with some taglines. So let in function, define form, function, trail test it, weight conscious, just doing a bunch of different ones. Even tried doing the line in the center with manufacturing underneath it. So if you notice, I had my line here underneath manufacturing. Now it's in the center here. This one's really nice. However, we do need a tagline underneath it because the title of this company doesn't tell us what they really do, and they manufacture things for trucks. So it was kind of hard they just look like a regular manufacturing company. It doesn't have much information. So started doing some taglines underneath it. Did a few more, did some without the gears, and then I also started playing around with like the thickness of the font. So I have a couple different thicknesses of fonts here. I even tried severe service products. Didn't really like that one. Changed up another tagline down here. kind of finally settled on the thickness of the font here, and then really started to play around with the tagline and the spacing. So function defines form is ultimately what I decided to go with. So then I decided, get rid of this. Then I decided this is essentially what I wanted, the name of the company, manufacturing with function defines form. So I tried it different ways, without the line, with the line and with the gears, with the line where the line is actually at the bottom on manufacturing where it touches with the gears, and then basically everything without the line but with the gears. So tried several different versions of the exact same logo. So you can see how easy it is to start off with one concept and then you start to change it and start going to more and more. So it should be very easy for you guys to get close to 20 different logos. I have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 18 off of basically one design. And it just kept going and kept going, and I can continue to go for days. So you guys are going to be creating your own logo, and I'm going to show you guys how to stretch the font in another video. I'll post a very short video on that one for you guys. Hopefully this helps you get started. Just start with one, see where it takes you, then do the next one, and then do the next one. Don't try and work on all 5 or 3 or 4, however many you have at once, because it's just going to get confusing.